No, because you're going to see a couple of other things, so we got to practice it. Okay, here we go. All right, so you're going to see it in a slightly different form. Equation has to be set equal to 0 before you can solve using the quadratic formula. So this is not equal to 0 yet. So what would I do? Add 1. 3x squared minus 5x plus 1 equals 0. Okay, what's my A?
3.
What's my B? And my C. Okay, let's sing. X equals negative B, which is going to be what?
5.
Positive 5. Plus or minus square root quantity B squared, which is what? Yeah, but what is it? 25. Minus 4AC all divided by 2 times A. Okay. Let's do what's inside the parentheses first. What's 4 times 3 times 1?
12.
25 minus 12 is what? It's 13. 5 plus or minus the square root of 13. I did not take the square root yet. That's still part of my problem. All I did what was under it. Okay. Now, you will see answers left like this when it's a decimal, because this will be a decimal, won't it?
So that's correct.
Or, we're going to do both ways. Or you can take the square root of 13, which I will tell you is 3.61. Okay?
But we don't need to do that.
It depends on what it asks you to do. If it says round to the nearest hundredths, that means you take it to decimal form. If it doesn't, then you could leave your answer like that. So I didn't finish those, but do you see where I came up with that?
Yeah.
This is the square root of 13, and I have a plus and a minus. Okay? 2 answers. We're not going to do this one, but I have to talk about something with this one. You with me? All right, so hey, if you want to set this to 0, what are you inclined to do for that? What would you want to do?
Minus 4
Divide 4.
No. You probably, most of you wouldn't divide. Most of you would probably want to subtract 4x squared. But I'm going to say for future purposes, it's best to keep this positive. So you just would subtract these 2 things. Bring those over. So it would be 4x squared minus 7x minus 2, and then that's equal to 0. It's best to keep that positive if you can. Okay? Then what would your A, B, and C be?
A is 4.
A is 4,
B, C is negative 7.
and C is?
Negative 2.
Okay. And we won't go any further with that one. But we are going to do this one. Okay? So,
No, I don't like story problems.
too bad.
Dang it.
For the period 1990 to 2003, the number of book titles published by a small publishing company can be modeled by this function. What does this function output? What is it telling me it does? The number of what? Book titles. That's my Y. That's my output. My Y is the number of books. And X is the number of years since 1990.
Which is 13.
Well, for that span, but that's not, we're going to find out what X is. In what year did the company publish 80 books? Oh, wait a minute. 80, is that X or Y? It's Y, because it just said right here, this function puts out the number of books. So this is my Y. That's my Y. So I'm going to plug that into my equation like this. 80 equals 0.5x squared plus 4x plus 19. And I'm going to use the quadratic equation to solve this. Before I do, though, it has to be set equal to what? 0. It's got to be always set equal to 0 before you can use a quadratic equation. So you subtract 80 from both sides. Now, you can't subtract it from that, you can't subtract it from that, but you can from that. So this is 0 equals 0.5 x squared plus 4x plus a negative 61. First thing I'm going to do is identify what?
A, B, and C.
Absolutely. My A, I'm just going to write as 0.5. My B is 4, and my C is negative 61. Don't be frightened by that. That's okay. You could still use a quadratic formula. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to use the quadratic formula now. X equals negative B, which would be what?
Negative 4.
Plus or minus square root quantity. So you make a really long square root. B squared, which is what?
Negative
16. 4 times 4 is 16. That's B squared minus 4 times A times C. All divided by 2 times A.
Yeah.
Ole. Now, the first thing you're going to do, and what part of this is the first calculation you're going to do?
Parentheses.
Inside here. Always, 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 okay? And that gives you 122. That gives you 122. Oh, no, it gives you a negative 122 inside there. Negative 122. So it's going to become what underneath here? 16 plus 16 plus 122. So let's rewrite it. X equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 138 divided by, what's 2 times a half?
1.
Oh. So we're not done yet because we ultimately are trying to figure out what X is, which is going to tell me the number of years since 1990. Okay, so the square root of 138 is 11.75. The 1 is irrelevant, so it doesn't need to be used anymore. So the square root of 138 is 11.75. So I did the plus and I did the minus. Hey, wait. Am I going to get a negative here? Yeah? This one right here will give me a negative, won't it? Can I have a negative number of years?
No.
So this solution is irrelevant. We won't use that solution. This one here will give me 7.75 years. But that's not how I'm going to answer it. It says, in what year did the company publish 80 books? So if it was 7.75 years and we started in 1990, what year was it that they published? 1997. In 1997, they had 80 books. 7 years to publish 80 books. Wow.
They were slow.
Okay? All right, let's talk about this. Almost done. Hang there with me. Tell what method you would use to solve the quadratic equation. We have not done graphing yet, so cross off graphing. That's coming. All right, so you learned factoring in Chapter 9. This was Chapter 9 here. Finding the square root, I can't remember where that was. You just did completing the square, and we've done the quadratic formula. So, I'm going to look at this here. I'm going to say, can I make A 1 here at all? Can I get rid of that 3? I can't because these can't be divided evenly by 3. So I'm not going to complete the square. I could factor it using a box. I could try factoring. The box method, you remember the box and coming up with 2 binomials?
Yeah.
Or I could always do what? Always, for anything you can do the quadratic formula. So I could try factoring. If that didn't work, then you would use the quadratic formula. Try factoring. If that didn't work, use the quadratic formula. Okay, this one here. Remember in the beginning of this lesson I talked about taking the square root? When there's no x, I could just very easily divide by 9 and take the square root of both sides here. Super easy. So this one I would take the square root. There's just x squared here. No x. So you can take the square root. It says just x squared here. There's no x. So it's real easy to take the square root. You can read that. Just x squared here, no x. So it would look like this. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to divide both sides by 9. I get this, and then I can just take the square root of both sides. You're done. All right, look at C. What method would you use? Which one? You could complete the square. You could add in a new C. Or there's even an easier method.
I like it. Is it the quadratic formula?
No, that quadratic formula is not that easy.
Factor.
Thank you. I could. Okay. You can complete the square here, or you can take what out of both of these? An x, and you would end up with this. And then you've factored, and all you got to do is set each factor equal to 0, and you have your answer. You see it? X equals 0, x plus 8 equals 0, and then I would have this for my answer. So, this was factoring. You could complete the square too if you want to. On the quiz, I'm assuming, I haven't seen it, I'm assuming they're going to say solve by factoring, solve by take the square root, solve by completing the square, solve by quadratic formula, and then they're not going to tell you how to do it. You have to decide. Let's sing one more time. All together. Ready? One more time. 1, 2, 3. X equals negative b plus or minus square root quantity b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2 times a. Olé. Hey, listen. That is also written in your book.